Hello, everyone. As promised, we are going live in the group starting this week, Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And that is Central Standard Time. So I want to first welcome everybody. And I want to keep these trainings to around 30 minutes. I'm going to do my best to honor that for both myself and for everyone here. And I want to start out with just as you're getting on, as you're popping on, I want you to just tell me where you're from. Um, we're talking about trauma here and everything that goes along with it. Mostly what it is that we do on a regular basis, repeatedly over and over and over again, that we most disdain about ourselves. And what I found through 30 years, well, I mean, pretty much my whole life, but over my 30 years of healing that I've been doing is it was never the event that was the problem, right? It was who I decided I was. And so we're going to dispel some myths about what trauma is today. We're going to talk about how we store information in our brain and why we repeat these patterns. I can't go into everything today. As we continue on with these, we're going to dive deep into all of the different sections that we're going in today. So again, I just want to start out with introducing myself. So my name is Melissa Gale. I was raped and sex trafficked from 2 to 25 on and off. And I always say that is not what ruined my life. What ruined my life was who I decided I was because of rape. That I wrecked my own life with for decades. And I am on a mission to end trauma on a global scale, one family at a time, and it starts with healing ourselves. The amount of damage that I did both to my family and to myself, and not even from a place of being unloving. I wasn't an abuser in the way that you look at abuse. But what I did do was from these unhealed places in myself, I parented my children and I put them in unnecessary situations to give me validation, to make me feel like I'm lovable, as those were some of the deepest belief systems that I had that kept me stuck in my pattern of behavior, which was to get into destructive relationships and prove these belief systems true to myself. And so, as y'all are popping in your questions, I'm going to try and get to them at the end. If you're watching live, I want you to give me a hashtag live. If it's a replay, hit hashtag replay, and I will come back. If you have questions, I want to be able to answer them to you, for you. So, starting out, what is trauma? And oftentimes what we think of trauma is the rape. It was, the abuse that happened in your religious upbringing. It was the beating that you had, what have you. And while that was traumatic, no doubt, that is not what trauma is. Trauma is what happens to us inside of our body and how our body actually responds to the traumatic event. Okay? And so my trauma, again, was not being raped and sex trafficked from 2 to 25. Super traumatic. The trauma was how I lived my life over and over again. It was me being stuck in the trauma, in the behaviors. 96% of every single thing that we do is from the unconscious mind. Meaning all the education that you have, everything that you've done up until now, it is only 4% of the reason of why you're doing what you're doing. Everything else we're doing is by meeting needs. And this is everything from keeping our heart beating to making sure that we're safe and loved. Everything that we do is from the subconscious mind. And so if we're ever going to make any real progress in creating change in our life, we're going to have to attack this. And so, and I'm going to continue to be looking at my notes. I don't want to miss anything, and I want to keep us on track. So how does it show up? So for myself, it showed up in the belief systems that I created. So having, all of this abuse that I grew up with, there were a couple things that happened in my brain. One, my brain was really, really used to having cortisol. If any of you grew up with childhood trauma, you know that when we have these stressful events, our bodies and our brains, they're magical and the greatest computer that there is. And so we want to learn how to work this. And one of the things that they do is to put out this cortisol to give us the fight, flight, freeze, faint response so that we can survive, right? Our brain is here to keep us safe and to procreate, pretty much. That's it. Keep us alive. That's all it does. And the keeping the safe part, though, is where all those belief systems come in. And so I want to talk a little bit about what a belief system is and how they're created. So belief systems are what rule our life. Because of my trauma, my deepest belief system at my core was that I'm unlovable. Not that people didn't love me. I had a lot of people that loved me. But for me to be able to take that information on, I would have had to believe that I was lovable. Because at my deepest belief system, I believed I was unlovable. My unconscious mind then deleted, generalized, or distorted that information to match what was programmed here. I could not accept love if I do not believe that I am lovable. That's not true. That would not be a true statement. And so not being true also equals not being safe in the unconscious mind. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about how we process information. And on the next slide, we're going to talk about how we process emotions. So I want you to catch that next Tuesday at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time. We're going to talk about how we process these emotions and why we always feel like we're at the end of our rope. Okay? But first, to understand that, we really have to understand how the brain works. I'm going to try and, I'm not an artist. Actually, I really am, but we're not doing artwork today. But I want you to understand how we actually take on information. So what we think, let me just give you a quick rundown of how we think, and then I'm going to give you a visual here, and that way you can hear it twice. So we think that we take on information with our eyes, even like what you're doing right now. We take on information with our eyes. We're going to think about it with our conscious brain, and then we're going to file that away into the unconscious mind to be stored there for a memory. Okay? But that's not at all what happens. What happens is we take on this information with our eyes. It bypasses the frontal lobe, the thinking brain, the critical factor, where it could make sense of anything. It takes that image and then moves it back to the unconscious mind, and then it gets filtered through something called the reticular activating system. It then, in this reticular activating system, this is like a filing system of importance, figuring out, if things are true, if things are not true. This is also where you house all your emotions. We're going to break down the reticular activating system next week. But this new information comes in through our eyes. It bypasses the frontal lobe, goes straight to the unconscious mind, and then gets filtered through all of our parental programming, all of our environmental programming, all of our social programming, all of our religious programming, all of the events that happened in our life, all of our emotions, all of our belief systems. And then it takes that picture and it deletes, generalizes, and distorts that information to match what's programmed here. So if it doesn't match here, that's why I always deleted out all the love around me, because it didn't match what was programmed here, which is that I'm unlovable, right? And then it takes that distorted picture to the frontal lobe and it calls it the truth. And it calls it the truth. And so what we have to do is start looking at what has been programmed. So when we create these belief systems that are in our unconscious mind, how are they formed? We form a belief system, three things have to happen. We have an outside stimulus. We interact with the world, with someone, even with ourselves. When we have that and it's coupled with a deep emotion, we decide something about ourselves or the world, right? The world is not safe. I was raped all the time. Men aren't safe. Women weren't safe. There were so many different scenarios that came up to create all of my belief systems. Our job as human beings is to figure out how to work this. This is what governs every other thing. For me, myself, I am a Jesus lover. But regardless of what you are, regardless of how you identify in there, you're going to be limited. Your God is going to be limited if you don't clear out this. Because if you're believing the lies, you're never going to move past them, right? So we have to go in and figure out what these influences are that created these deep emotions. So I'm going to draw just real quick. So this is what I was saying. So it's called the reticular activating system. Too high. The reticular activating system. And again, how we take in process information. We're taking on 2 million pieces of information every single second. Our brain is really, really good at deleting, generalizing, and distorting information. The generalizing means that you can go and sit in a chair and know that you can sit on a chair. And when you go and see a tree stump, your brain automatically generalizes that to the chair and knows that you can also sit on the tree stump and use that as a sitting device as well. When we delete information, this is how you're able to have your sunglasses on your head, but you can't find them, or your keys in your hand and you can't find them. When the information came in that you had your keys in your hand, you weren't leaving, you weren't doing it. The unconscious mind says it's not important right then, and it gets completely deleted, meaning that it never gets to the conscious brain to think about it. So now that information is not even there for you to be able to retrieve that your keys are in your hand, or your phone is in your hand and you're looking for it. So we do this all the time. It's happening at an unconscious level all the time. What we need to do is to start realizing, how we're processing that information. So again, even right now, you're looking at me, you're getting a picture, you're taking on this information, right? So you get a picture, okay? And this is your eyeball. And that picture comes in through your eye, right? Once we have this image that comes through, it then gets filtered, right? And it's going to go through all of your environmental programming, all of your religious programming, all of your social programming, all of your parental programming, all of your events that happen, all of your trauma that happen, all of your belief systems, also known as bullshit in my world. And then at that point, it deletes, generalizes, or distorts that information to be a new picture. And then we take that around to the frontal lobe and we call that the truth. And this is why you're having a conversation with your husband and y'all both had the exact same conversation and y'all are not even on the same plane. You have absolutely, it's like does not compute. And yet you are speaking as clearly as you can. Right? He's taking that information or she is taking that information and you are also taking his information or her information and deleting, generalizing, and distorting that information to match what you believe about yourself and what you believe about the world. Okay? So what do we do about this? Like, how do we go in and fix that? And so a lot, and you're going to hear me talk about this throughout these lives and throughout these trainings. I run the Intention Academy. What I found over running it over the past couple of years is that there's a lot of people that just aren't ready to do the amount of work that it takes to come and confront this. And for a lot of you, that stuff that programmed all of these different belief systems about yourself, they're painful. And I get it. And I honor you even just for being here and even trying to learn about yourself because it's scary. As we go through here, we're going to learn all the different parts of the unconscious mind and why you're doing the things that you're doing. And I'm hoping, my prayer and my hope for you is that you're able to give yourself some grace around that. Instead of shaming ourselves for the way that we've been and the way that we behave and the things that we do, we are able to give ourselves grace and give ourselves permission to go and get the healing that we most want and deserve. If you're anything like me, you've been at this for a really long time. I myself spent 30 years and at least well over 6 figures. And that's not even including my time trying to heal this, whatever was going on here. And I never found it. I didn't find it in the medical system. I didn't find it in, hiring life coaches. I didn't find it in the transformational world. I found awareness to my problem, no doubt. I figured out what a lot of my belief systems were, no doubt. And so, and I even had a lot of people. I'm going to do an entire live on why hypnotherapy, NLP, or whatever tactic that you are using to try and deal with this, why it doesn't last. It's not that it doesn't work. It absolutely works. I use NLP, I use hypnotherapy, I use timeline therapy, I use inner child work. I use a lot of different things, but I want to talk to you about why it doesn't work. And why it doesn't work is here. Okay? So let's say that you go to a worthiness coach, or you go to someone for this problem that you're having, and they do all of their tips and tricks that they have, and it works. Ultimately, no matter what we're doing, if we're going to therapy, if we're going to, to a coach or anything, basically what we're wanting is for someone to take something and for us to believe something different so that we can have a different experience, right? So if you go to a worthiness coach or a happiness coach or live your best life coach or whatever it is, right? They're going to help you believe that those things are true for you and help you get a game plan. Many times we don't end up executing on the game plan because of the reticular activating system. So you've got, Coach Sally, who is helping you be worthy. She does all of her tips and tricks to help you move these things within the unconscious mind from things that weren't true to things that are true. The main thing that we're leaving out in all of this is the reticular activating system and how the brain works. Because what's going to happen with that new information? The new information is going to say, okay, I'm worthy. That wasn't true. Now I'm worthy. It is true. And you're feeling really good when you get out of the program, right? And it's going to take about 2 weeks before all of that information gets filtered through your bullshit meter. And the thing is that new information is going to go down through your reticular activating system, and then it's going to call bullshit. And then it's going to list out every single thing that you've done since 1992 as to why you're not worthy. And it's going to move right back over to something that is not true. You are not worthy, and you will never follow through on all of those things. You might from this place of will. I've got to do it. And I'm not saying that you can't get far in there. I'll live that place forever. But eventually your adrenal glands are going to run out. Your body's going to wear out on you. And what I found is that there's an easier way. And the easier way is going in and starting to attack this. And so whether you decide to get into our program and our team to be able to walk you through the other side of this, I want to equip you with the knowledge of how to work your brain. So no matter where you go or whatever you do, you have the information that you need, because quite frankly, it's not out there. Right? And no one's teaching us how to actually use our brain. No one's actually teaching us how we actually process our emotions so that we can regulate those things. Next week, whenever we talk about the how we process our emotions, you're going to see how we house them and why they fill up these emotions, and why, because even if you're depressed or you have anxiety attacks or you go into shame spirals, why you're not sick. In fact, if you were doing anything else, given the environment and the circumstances that you were under, if it was doing anything else, then you would be broken. But you are not broken. And so what I want to do, again, is to be able to equip you with that. So what are these? I want to go over just real quick about these repeated patterns of behavior. And I want to give you a little example of how this has shown up in my life. So in my reticular activating system, what is showing up from my environmental programming, religious programming, social programming, parental programming, all the events in my life, my trauma, my belief systems, is my deepest ones is I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. I'm stupid. And a lot of you have a lot of things around knowledge in your brain. And because your brain was so focused on keeping trauma down, it didn't have the capacities and availabilities. And then we're judging ourselves and comparing ourselves to other people that were not experiencing that. And turns out that's not fair. Right? And so some of the other ones that I had, not lovable, not worthy, right? All men leave. I'm only worthy based on how good I can have sex, right? I was always trying to prove my worth through a multitude of different things. Because of all of this pain, I found a lot of coping mechanisms, right? Numbing techniques. My number one being busy. If you can relate with that, put it in the comments, because we're all doing it. If we actually stop, we would have to feel our feelings. Trying to create worthiness through success, through making more money, through losing weight, trying to create a sense of control because everything inside of me was not. And I didn't know how to fix that. And that is a lonely, scary place, especially if you're raising a family or running a business. So with these belief systems that I had, I remember that people used to always ask me, like, how do you find these men, Melissa? Like, literally, I used to say I had a super talent. I could, like, literally go into any room and find the absolute most fucked up person in the room and have them fall in love with me. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Eventually, they'll probably even propose to me, as they did, many. And because I never knew how to say no, I just kept getting married over and over again. So welcome to the unconscious mind. It's a bitch. But it doesn't have to be. It's only a bitch if you don't know how to work it. And so what I want to do is to support you in learning how to work your brain. You deserve that. And I know a lot of people are hopping on right now. I want you to go back to the beginning and watch this from the beginning. But what we're talking about is the unconscious mind and how 96% of everything that we do is from the unconscious mind, and how that creates repeated patterns of behavior that we don't have much control over stopping. And we're going to continue to get into this. So because of my deepest subconscious beliefs of being unlovable, being unworthy, not being good enough, being stupid, only being worthy based on my ability to have sex and how well that was and how long I could do that, if anything came to me, like if a man approached me that was respectful, loving, caring, generous, kind, my unconscious mind immediately deleted that information. It never even made it to the frontal lobe for me to see. Do you see what I'm saying? There's no freaking choice in that. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's no choice in that. If you want choice, you are going to have to fix what has been programmed in your unconscious mind, or you will repeat it. You can get out of this relationship again. You can do, set some new parameters with your kids. You can do all the different things, but you're always going to land back here. You're going to land back in this reticular activating system, and nobody's going to fix this for you, and nobody can. That's what I love about this program, is that there is nothing that I'm going to give you in this program, but you will give to yourself. You will be completely 100% independent within your own self, so that you can constantly heal yourself. Keep yourself in a state of healing. Keep your unconscious mind in a clear space, so that you can act from a place of not only knowing what your gifts are, which are the second part of the program, but you can't even get to your gifts if you're stuck in your lies. It's not going to happen. Another misconception that is out there is that your gifts are for the world. No, they're not. Who goes to a birthday party and gives their gifts away? You don't. Your gifts are for you. And they're there to serve you. And from that place of being built up, cleared from all the lies, knowing what your gifts are, knowing how to use them, honoring that part of yourself, and then serving from that space, now that you can serve the world. That is a gift to the world. But it is not your gifts for you. Those gifts for you are just for you. They're there to serve you. Our job is to create an environment within ourselves where our gifts can prosper, where our gifts can live up. And so that's really all I have today. I want to there's more coming. We're going to break down every single one of this. We're going to break down all the parts of the reticular activating system, what is housed in the reticular activating system are your beliefs, your emotions, and all the influences that you have. And what does that actually look like? And what does that mean? How can we go through and clear these things out? As we continue to go through, we're going to look at all of the different things that trauma creates. Everything from codependency to narcissism. Newsflash, you're just lucky you're an empath. You could have been a narcissist. We're both meeting the same needs. From this over here, there's no choice. You don't have a choice from taking on people's emotions and constantly feeling their feelings and, needing to be so hyper-focused and hyper-aware on every single thing around you so that you can keep safe, and they can't help themselves from having to, create this scenario where they tear someone down and build them back up so that they can feel good about themselves. We're all just meeting these needs from these insecurities, and you're doing it to your kids, you're doing it to your family, and most importantly, you're doing it to yourself. Unlimit yourself. You can do it. Thank y'all so much for listening. That's all for this week, and I will talk with y'all Tuesday at 2 Central. Bye.